little hiatus last week. We missed you guys. Hopefully you missed us. The team was holding it down at Singapore in Singapore at Token2049. If you were on the timeline, you know that event was a huge buzz all across, even for people who couldn't attend. But we are lucky enough to have our entire team back. They are fresh off the trip and ready to share kind of their experience, some of the insights they had, the impact and potential of Blubird, and a whole mess of other things. So honored to have just the OGs, the Blubird team on stage with us tonight. And what better way to invite these guys home and kick it off? But Corey, how you doing tonight? Or this morning? I always get that messed up, man. I'm ready for the end of the day, and you're just getting going. I love it.
Mate, I'm doing quite well. We've just locally here, we've actually had a touch of rain, which is the first bit of rain we've had here in probably about 2 months. So outside of all of work and tech and all the rest of it, very happy about that. On the Blubird side, mate, everything's doing fantastic. I could not be happier. I was planning on actually making it to the Token 2049 events. However, due to an issue in the family, I had to cancel, short notice cancel. However, a good portion of our team were able to make it still. So yeah, keen to dive into that today and really share with everyone here what we kind of uncovered and seen at the event.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to get into it. Just because it has been a couple weeks, and normally we have special guests and we need to intro them, and we've done 12 of these now. I think it'd be a great time just to go around, kind of remind everyone who we are, what our roles are at Blubird, and just kind of give them that catch up. I know they're all here paying attention in the Discord, and they know this. But for anyone listening on the podcast later, just like to kick that off too. So, Corey, I'll go right back to you. You're the top dog. A little bit about your background and your role at Blubird.
Yeah, no worries. So my role at Blubird is I am a founder and CEO. My background is I've been in Web3 since early 2017, full-time. And since then, I've helped launch a bit over 100 projects. I've sat on about 40 advisory boards, currently still on 7. And about 4.5 years ago, I co-founded and launched a venture capital, Andromeda Capital, and we've deployed capital into well over 300 projects, which is the combination of both of those sides of experiences where I suppose the issues that Blubird is solving came from.
Every time I hear that, I get more excited, man. Just so lucky to be around you, have you in this space, but also take all that experience and be able to build this amazing product at Blubird. I'll just keep moving right down the line. We've got Ian. Ian's the Chief Marketing Officer. Ian, give us a little intro and what you do at Blubird.
Sure, you're going to make it tough for me by following Corey, which is always a tough thing. Basically, I've been in technology, innovation, emerging areas for most of my career: marketing, communication, strategy, interactive agencies, worked with the founders of 1-800 Flowers, variety of different big companies, startups, have had one-on-ones with Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Mark Cuban, all those fun types of people. And none of it compares to the great team that I work with at Blubird. So it's just amazing. And I am lucky to call them not only colleagues, but friends. So looking forward to hearing them shed some insight tonight.
Absolutely. And love that. That's one of my favorite things about Web3 is the opportunity to work with people kind of in the trenches. Some of those top performers, they're groomed for so long and they're almost inaccessible. And, on a daily occurrence, we get to interact with these guys. And for those of us on the team and get to work with them, it's truly special. Continuing on down, we've got GP with us tonight. GP, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm good. Still a little bit under the weather. I was in Singapore with David holding down the fort for Blubird. My background is actually very similar to Ian's. Without divulging his age, we've been in the I've been in the industry for the better half of 2.5 decades, and what I mean by that is user experience specifically. My background has been in startups, building them, selling them, and then a very long stint in traditional finance, whether that be Wells Fargo or Morgan Stanley, leading very large product teams for those guys. And then the crypto and blockchain space since 2016. It's actually Corey and I actually met each other that long ago, as well as Ian. We all met on a collective project, and have been in the space ever since. And that is again consulting for protocols, L1 specifically, and then lots of other financial products in that space, whether it's cross-chain wallets, or, for example, one of the largest exchanges out of Europe, and a myriad of other things like that. So, and then, by the way, I'm the chief product officer and somewhat of the operations as well within Blubird. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for that. And you said something that I didn't know, or at least I didn't realize. In this space, there are, so many projects that come and go, best intentions or, the worst intentions, and they build up teams quickly. And then for one reason or another, they don't pan out, they flame out, they run out of money, and the team kind of disperses and goes away. And so hearing you say that, the core of this has not only been in space in time, but has found ways to work together, build projects, and continues to produce at a super high level is just, more conviction in terms of the staying power and what you guys potentially can do. So just wanted to shout that out. That's really cool that I hadn't realized how long you guys had been actually all pulling in the same direction. So
that's a good point. You make a great point. And a lot of people, that's a really great little small trivial fact about us. Ian and Corey, Matt's not on the call, CTO, and a myriad of other people actually literally met on the project that I left a nice, really big, cushy finance job for to start, and that was a cross-chain wallet back in 2016. It was too early to market, but what we did maintain was a solid set of solid core friendship and working relationship. And so, yeah, our relationships are not like within the last few years. They're actually pretty far back.
Yeah, that's really cool. And the other thing you said is friendship too. We always talk about this work-life balance. So it's great that you can appreciate, respect, and get things done with people, but also have a good time, because I think that's really important for the culture. But we could go probably an entire Birdhouse just talking about Web3 culture and all the things that you guys have seen. We got one more on stage with us. I can see we got Davey Darko. We got David behind there. Welcome to the stage, man. Great to have you tonight.
Hey, Mike. Great to be here, and great to be here with the team as well. We're currently buzzing, coming back from Singapore, and it's been a great experience to see so many teams and so many projects building in real life. We spend a lot of our life online now, especially of hybrid teams. So it's just a big vote of confidence coming back from something like this in Singapore. To give a bit of a background from myself, I have been a business owner and an agency owner since 2015. So coming up on 10 years working within the digital media and digital marketing space. And around a similar time as GP and Corey, just a little bit later, I got into the blockchain sector in 2017. And I've worked on initiatives with brands like Reebok, brands like Lad Bible, and also Blubird, which is going to become a big brand in the space as time passes, on initiatives across partnerships, marketing, and also global rollouts for both physical merchandise and NFT products. And at the moment, I'm working with Blubird across marketing and also partnership initiatives. and kind of in the trenches on both sides, which is very enjoyable.
That's great, man. Well, thank you. And, just love getting more of that background and your product experience. Something I'm interested in as well. Again, I'm Mike Romei. My name's Mike. I do a little bit of BD here. These guys have blessed me with the opportunity to run the Birdhouse as the weekly co-host, and they always bring fantastic guests and their own opinions. So just love to be along for the ride, and hopefully we can make this thing go. Getting right into it. So it sounds like David, you and GP were the ones representing Blubird over in Singapore last week. So why don't we just jump right back to you, David? What were your experiences there? How was it?
Well, the biggest thing that I noticed straight off the bat is that there is a whole event that is taking place outside of Token 2049, and that is that there was about 400 separate gatherings that happened outside of the actual conference itself. So I quickly found that there was many teams flying in internationally. They were hosting across many different sectors. So it wasn't so much just the conference that was buzzing, but it was more so the whole city. There was different side events throughout all of the hotels, and also throughout the casino, the art gallery, and many different things that we went to. And one of the biggest things that I noticed was the conference wasn't so much like a 9 a.m. to 5 a.m., sorry, 9 to 5 p.m. It was more so going from 7 a.m. in the morning. There was stuff like early morning jogs where teams were getting together and doing meetups, all the way through to 3 a.m. at night. So it was buzzing.
Yeah, that's so cool. I've never been to Singapore, so I can only imagine what the city is and the layout. But after attending events, NFT NYC and Art Basel, it is really cool when those communities come and they all do their own little takeover, and there's all these sub events. A couple times I haven't even attended the conference. I just pick it up on Twitter or get the videos later. So it's great that you guys were actually there, but also could experience all that. GP, I'll toss it to you, man. How did you like Singapore? How was the conference for you?
I think I probably share similar interest. And actually, Dave, it was 797 side events. Was the actual, I think, pretty official number. I can talk about it from a few different angles. One of it is kind of a little bit of mixed bag because of the side events, right? So in the past, there's these, and this was a recurring theme across the board from other people as well. The halls in the actual event seem to be a little bit sparse versus the amount of side events. Yet, if you look at where most business is done, it's done in the halls during the day versus the side events, because the side events are loud, usually have DJs involved. It's more of a camaraderie thing versus the actual art of doing the actual more oriented towards business. Like that's one perspective. It's not anything that we saw. We kind of met and did everything we needed to do across the board. But that was kind of some of the general consensus around there. And at the same time, there's a bunch of other stuff that was going on too, like because F1 was there end of the week, and they've got major crypto sponsors. And so for one of the first times, you started to see some crossover between a major industry effort and the crypto and blockchain space. And that was in the nature of sponsorships, in the nature of the boxes that people are attending and things like that. So, I mean, I had a great time, but it was, mostly side events. I did catch a few race cars. But yeah, it was, all in all, very eye-opening as far as Singapore goes. It's a beautiful place. People are super nice. And it's probably the cleanest city I've been in my life. There's literally no trash anywhere, like nowhere, not on the highway, not on the streets, nothing. So yeah, it was good from a cultural perspective and a business perspective.
That's awesome. And, I mean, you may have me just a little bit more jealous about the F1 than the conference. I love my conferences, but
Well,
there's
also
still a little boy in me that loves race cars.
Yeah, well, to boot, there was also a Porsche Asia Cup race at the same day. So that was for me really pretty fantastic. So yeah, it's
I
awesome.
hope. Did they give you a chance to drive?
No, but just
Oh,
being able to see Cup cars run
Yep.
on a street course that's also the F1 track was pretty cool. And then honestly, I had no clue that there was the main headline music acts either. I mean, it's like a city of like music and race cars, but which is sponsored by crypto, by the way, guys. So there's that.
All right, I'm going next year. Sign me up. I'm in.
Sorry.
That's all right, man. We do it live.
Well, we have a lot of hurricane. We do have a hurricane here, and that was my daughter calling me from a very specific city that she lives in that's kind of in the path. So I'm gonna put.
Well, please why don't you go ahead and take that? That sounds very important. Family first, always. We're a family here in Web3, but we can cover for you. So take care of that. And my mom is down in Sarasota, Florida. Tampa's getting hit pretty hard too. So total shout out to anybody affected by the hurricane that's coming through right now. Corey, I know you weren't there, but I have to imagine you've been to a number of conferences throughout your career. Can you just, kind of from your perspective, we mentioned it sort of in the open, but there's that dynamic of IRL, right? We're so hybrid, we're so remote. And I think, they talked about, getting the business done in the hallways and in the events, but what is it like to go to a conference and represent, a project, at a conference of that stature?
Well, it can be a mix. It can be a real mixed bag when it comes to that. And it's kind of hit or miss. And what I mean by that is sometimes you'll go to said event and it's literally just a pitch fest where everyone's pitching each other their projects and there's not much of real substance. And it can be kind of time wasting, to be honest. And that's the side that a lot of people tend to, I suppose, talk down about events, about things like that. And, the real things from those sorts of events tend to happen at the after parties. So they're like invite-only spaces. That's where a bit more intimate one-on-one networking can actually take place. Some proper introductions can take place in an area that everyone can let their guard down. Whereas on the floor, everyone's got their guard up because everyone's trying to sell them something, or they're trying to get investment, or then they're the next big thing, and it can get pretty exhausting pretty quickly. But then on the flip side, depending on again which event it is and what the focus is, there can be some really, really good insights, and I'm sure David can speak to some on the RWA side. Especially this time around in the Singaporean event here. But it's like, there's different niches, different topics for each cycle that they kind of start to rear their head quite early. And at the conferences, that's generally where you'll start to notice it first. So there's some, you can't glean everything from Twitter. You can't, X now. Don't arrest me. And, other social media platforms, you can't really, gauge the proper sentiment until you start speaking with people in a more personable fashion. And they tend to not give you the keyboard warrior take on things or the hyper speculative to try get engagement take on things. You get the real deal kind of scenarios of what they're actually thinking because they're not trying to get engagement on social media. And that, in my opinion, goes a long way to really having a real pulse on the crypto market as a whole as well. So the value for projects, just to sidestep and move forward in a different direction, the value for projects depends on what stage they're at as well. Like for us, we're quite far along in terms of where our product is and where our partnerships are and things like that. So for us, it's an absolute goldmine because we can act on a lot of the relationships that we gain from said events. So for us, it's the prime time to go. However, for a project that is maybe just still an idea, or they're still trying to close out their seed round, unless it is a absolute unicorn of a project type, probably not worth it for those sorts of projects to go there, simply because they're not at a mature enough state. Unless they want to go there just to build up relationships, that's fine. But to go there and try and gain value for the projects for the there and now, it's going to be very hard. They're going to get probably 100 no's to every yes, and even then the yes likely will get cold feet. So it's going to be very tough for those sorts, but people still try, and good on them for trying. But it's it's for some people a lot of money, right, to spend and to go to these events, especially depending on where you are in the world. Potentially no change out of maybe $8,000 US, something like that, depending on how long you're there for and where you stay. So you've got to have the right narrative when you're going there for to actually gain value is probably the key takeaway. But if it's just networking, I mean, yeah, they're fantastic for that.
No, that's great insight, and I think you're absolutely right. Just to if you get a booth or you get a speaker panel, or even just a lanyard to go into the conference, that can add up quick if you're bringing multiple members, and that's probably why they had close to 800 side events, right? There were people who were hosting them, and it was probably cheaper to throw a fun time than it was to actually be at the conference all day, and then others were just there to attend but still build their network. So there's a little bit for everyone, but I think that's really good perspective from a founder and a CEO and somebody who's seen so many projects on how to allocate your assets and make the most of them. So shout out to that. I knew you'd bring it even though you weren't there with the boys. Always adding the alpha. So thank you for that. We'll I'll kick it over to David. What were some of the trends that you saw coming out of Token 2049? I'm going to stumble on that all night. I'm sorry. It was easy to type, but I can't say it for my life. So
don't worry, mate. I've been doing the same all week. There was definitely some standout trends. I noticed that there was a very strong narrative towards RWAs and tokenization of RWAs. And there was a lot of big players in the space that were really heavily broadcasting that kind of message as well. The likes of Chainlink were spending a lot of time to push towards educating people on the opportunity of tokenizing real world assets. We also had our partner Red Belly Network over there to give a panel discussion, and also they were just networking on the day. And I also noticed that there was a lot of institutions that are not typically within the Web3 sector, such as banks and also asset managers that were there to learn more and see how they could possibly tokenize their portfolio and get a bit of the space as well. Outside of this, there was also a lot of deep in projects. One of the standouts for me was Peak Network. They had a really cool setup booth where they had a Tesla and a heap of different equipment where you could see different IoT devices that were connected to their testnet, which was great to see. And then probably after Deepin and RWAs, the other narratives that were still very much a part of the conference were stuff like deployment of meme tokens, NFT projects, art houses, stuff like that. But I'd say the biggest standouts were definitely real world assets, DPIN, and just tokenization as well, which I think for myself and GP also brought a lot of confidence, considering that Blubird has overlaps and clear overlaps in all three of those sectors.
Awesome. Well, I'm not surprised to hear that, but also the confirmation of those things, they tend to dominate the timeline as well. But to get to go and see that in real life, and like Corey was saying, to shake the hands and see somebody not behind the keyboard or just putting hype out for engagement. But GP, are you back with us? Are you in a good spot now?
Yeah, I'm in a good spot.
Awesome. All right, man. Yeah, just wanted to check in and see if you noticed similar trends to David or anything else that stood out to you. Just give you a chance to respond to that too. Since
yeah, I mean, and I think everybody has a different takeaway, right, on this stuff, right? Like, and I think it is, as Corey touched on it, it probably has to do a lot with where companies are in their space, and kind of their efforts. To give you an example, one of the kind of more stronger, like, relationship building venues for David and I was an actual after event that was 2 days after, a day after, 2 days. I can't remember. They all blend together, and it was fairly decent size. It was quiet. They were giving some they were doing some presentations, but we probably met more folks on that in that single event than any of the other later night things, right? I think my point with that is I think everybody does business in different ways. And that one was very fruitful for us, for example. And it was a side event, but it was a structured side event that was kind of front running with kind of get to know you kind of thing up front before the presentation. So an interesting take on it, right? Like I said, we all have different thoughts and opinions, and that one seemed to be very very interesting. But I will also say it was very much oriented towards RWAs and business around that. So I think you've got a couple things playing into or factoring in, right? You've got the mainline event, you've got side events, which a lot of them are after parties, and then you've got the another set which are meeting room oriented spaces as well. So
totally makes sense. And absolutely right that there's a little bit something for everyone. I want to kind of move it towards, well, let me just take it back a step. Were there any like specific projects? And I know you guys, it's been a couple days since you've been back and you guys are recuperating. Maybe you have your notes in front of you, but were there specific projects? I mean, David, you mentioned, IoT devices and entire test net, that piqued my interest, but were there presentations or companies that really stood out to either of you that should be recognized, specifically for who they are or what they could potentially do?
I can jump in on that one. There was a few things that stand out to me a lot, but I think one of the biggest ones was definitely Peak Network, which I need to learn a lot more about. It's just interesting that we now have all of these different L1s and L2s that instead of competing in the space of just being the biggest L1 or being the biggest L2, like we used to have in previous cycles, you'd always hear previous narratives where you'd be like, this chain is the Ethereum killer, this chain is the Neo killer. But now it's more so that these sectors are becoming bigger and bigger, whether it be DPIN, RWAs, NFTs, gaming, that now these different L1s are just trying to own and compete in those different spaces and optimize their chain so it's most suitable for just that one use case. So I definitely started to notice that as a standout. The messaging behind we run the fastest L1 or we run the most secure L1 has changed and evolved into these companies competing for, we have optimized our chain for Web3 gaming, we have optimized our chain for secure transactions. So that was probably one of the biggest standouts for me, not so much just the technology, but all of these builders in the space are now starting to niche down and try to find their particular offering and try to build their tech just to try to own that sector. Where a couple of years ago it was more about interoperability and trying to be a chain that can wear all shoes.
Yeah, I'll just jump in here real quick. GPS, you're off mute. But I've always kind of had the feeling that that optimization of the chain is going to be important for whatever a brand's use case is, depending on what they're actually trying to do with it. Whether it's cost efficiency, of information per block, or anything else, and then to like just a single monopoly on a single chain. If brands were stuck on them, without competition, then there could be potential for problems there too. And you see it even with like label makers and things like that. That Nike as a brand will never use Avery Dennison for 100% of their labels, even though they can produce them the fastest and the cheapest, because other than Avery Dennison could just drive up the price on them. And so I think you'll continue to see that there will be Oracle, there will be SAP. They won't necessarily compete against each other, but they'll be necessary just for use cases. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out too. But yeah, really interesting insight that the interoperability is not necessarily the message, but there does need to be specific chains for specific uses. GP, I'll let you comment on that, or if you had standout presentations or projects that you saw while you're there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think for me it was kind of as far as standouts. There's a protocol. It's new. It's Charles Hoskins is behind it. It's called Midnight. I had an opportunity to spend about an hour with the chief product officer there, and that was probably the one standout for me. There is being able to talk to those guys, because they really are, from a protocol perspective, still the essence of true decentralization and true data protection. We had a very deep conversation about the general centralization that's happening within the space, and it is a natural thing. It is going to happen as applications and projects continue to evolve. But what are the ways that you can actually continue to kind of break out of the mold and stay kind of true to the nature of the beast, so to speak? And so that's probably the standout for me, is being able to spend some time and understand that there are still projects out there that are very still oriented around protection of data and the whole entire idea of being self-sovereign, and being able to conduct business as such. So that's probably was the biggest takeaway for me with those guys, with that particular project. So.
Cool, man. Well, maybe we can, I don't know if you guys have access to them, but if you have any tweets from any of those projects, you want to post them up to the Jumbotron, people in the audience could go check them out and take a look. Earlier we were talking about F1 and we kind of glossed over something. You mentioned that there was a bit of crossover between some of the advertisers in the blockchain crypto space and being present at F1 events. And we know getting those stickers on cars, getting those banners up around the track so that they're on television, that's not little money. So I'd love to ask either of you, what big brands or what mainstream companies were there, and how were they represented?
As far as with that event, they were the big ones, right? So let's take OKX for example. They are literally the sponsor of Lando Norris, who won the event. Not only did he win the event, he had the strongest times the entire weekend, but they are literally the key sponsor for that McLaren race team. That's a big deal. On the flip side, you've got crypto.com, you've got Bybit, they're all going to be bigger entities, but I'll give it to you, put it to you this way. The people sitting next to me, one of them looked over at someone's jersey, which happened to be a McLaren jersey, just a fan, and they said, "Oh, Binance. Binance is on. It sponsors the McLaren race team." I mean, so those are the kind of conversations that are starting to happen out in the wild with general public, which is a compelling conversation. It's a compelling thought, right? It's like when things start to become a household name, so to speak, not that they are yet, it's great affirmation about what is actually occurring. And to see it out there and to see that actually happen in front of you is really great. It's pretty amazing, actually.
I believe we would like to call that onboarding, onboarding the masses, right? That transparent layer, but also the conviction of these brands to take a chance, and then get out there and spend the money. David, I'll throw it to you. Anything you noticed?
Well, as we talk about major brands, a good one to bring up would be Sony. Sony are developing with another company their own blockchain called Sonium, and they were very much present at the conference, and they were very much there to do business and talk to companies like Blubird as well. And not just about stuff like putting IP on blockchain, but they were exploring everything from how they could get real world assets on chain, different integration partners, and they had a lot of visibility at the event as well. So that's probably a prime example of a company that has some sort of product in most households across the world that is well and truly doubling down on this space and looking to launch infrastructure and compete with other massive L1s and L2s. So that was probably the biggest takeaway for me, was talking to their team, having a proper discussion with their partnership team as well, and just learning about all the effort and resources and focus that's going into their blockchain offering as well.
Really cool, really cool. Hopefully you had a chance to interact with some of them, or get some contacts, or at least see people that were building on it, because I think, that is a big one. And that's something, that came up in the timeline a few weeks ago, but to see them at a major conference like that, out there getting the exposure, and people getting that hands-on, like we talked about earlier, that's just more realization of what's happening. So I wish, maybe we can dig deep in the network and get some of those folks. It'd be great to have a discussion on Sonium, or mainstream brands coming into Web3 and crypto, and run a Birdhouse on it in the future. So maybe we'll just put that in the backlog of topics and see what we can do.
Give it a few weeks and we'll be there.
Little sneaky alpha. All right, watch out, guys.
We're working on it. We're working on it.
You heard it. You heard it here first. All right. Well, we won't hold you to it, but we'll be excited when it happens. And all right, I'll get my questions ready. Holy cow! You think about, the thing I think about is there's so much discussion of the metaverse, and a lot of people's experience in Web3, or even in traditional metaverses, has been through a console, a PC, and not a console. And of course, Sony has one of the largest selling consoles in the world with the PlayStation. So it'll be interesting to see how that integrates too and affects Web3 gaming. But like I said, we could take it. We could spend the rest of the hour on that alone. But it sounds like you guys had an awesome time. There were so many opportunities. You did all this networking. You saw these projects. Obviously, you had to go in there with some sort of a goal of what Blubird wanted out of it, and maybe it's a chance to talk about the project and the project's goals out of 2049. And maybe we could kick this one to Corey, because I'm sure he was calling the shots, and then you guys were running the plays. Or Corey doesn't have to go. I don't know. Maybe he's stuck on mute again. Maybe he got rugged by X. Dave, why don't we just go back to you until Corey is in a spot? Oh, wait. Oh, he lost his window. He's coming. We're on the bat phone. He's coming up. Or not. We'll give him one more second, then David, you can jump in.
No problem. Do you mind just running back the question again?
Yeah. So, we were, you guys made all these, connections. You maximized your time there, 700, 800 events plus the main event. You had to go in there with some sort of a plan or a goal. And, what was Bluebird's intention in being there besides just the networking? How were you guys presenting what you guys are doing?
Definitely. So we're lucky to have many different verticals that we can explore. And a lot of these opportunities, when we're talking to different projects, also open up multiple different opportunities that we can explore. So, for example, our ideal partner can be anyone from a launchpad to an L1, an L2, any EVM chain, or also chains that are non-EVM. And pretty much any project that is looking to use Bluebird for their cap table management, their SAFT management, or even their early fundraising, and keeping all of their investor information secure and central in one point. So the types of goals that we were discussing as a team as we went over there was what teams, when it comes to L1s and L2s, might be best suitable for us to add as a direct integration with Bluebird. So our pipeline of different founders can explore launching on their chain, which is a very easy discussion to have with these teams, because what they're looking for when it comes to value is they want activity and they want good teams that are going to build good products on their chain. So that's one of the first major goals that we had, and we ended up coming back with, I think I've got a list of about 20 plus different popular, well-funded L1s that are interested in integration. And then obviously the other option is on the other side, which is founders and teams that are looking to deploy their own project. And these could be teams that are very early in their fundraising cycle, where they're just starting to bring the concept to life. Or it could be teams that are later in their fundraising cycle and they're looking to take their token or their security or their equity to market. So these are discussions that we can have as well. And it's not always just with Web3 project founders. We were having these discussions as well with asset managers that, for example, might have a big real estate portfolio, and they're looking at different ways that they can explore tokenizing these assets so they can get exposure to a wider market. And then outside of this, we also have discussions with VCs and investors that are looking to use our platform as a way to manage how they track their investments and how they also apply to enter investment rounds. So pretty much there's so many different opportunities to explore. It's everything from L1s, L2s, VCs, investors, KOLs, and projects that are looking to launch.
That's fire, man. Just knowing you guys had that plan and that opportunity. Corey, I see you're back. You good to go?
I am. Yes,
you
mate.
want to jump
Yes.
in on the objectives as well?
Well, mate, I think I might have to hang up my hat after that really clear and concise description there from David. So
I was
pretty
going
well,
to say, it's pretty good, man.
Yeah, he pretty well covered everything. I was gonna say and then some. So, I guess the only thing I might just add to that is that the reason why it was such a broad net that we cast was due to the fact of that most of our software is in operation at this point, albeit in closed beta. We're onboarding projects to the core Web3 side of the application. We've onboarded a project, a large client of ours, to the real world asset management suite and the marketplace for that, and have begun tokenization of RWAs on that side, which there'll be a rather juicy press release coming out in the next week or so. But it allows us a lot of freedom of who we can actually approach. And that's why I said it was an absolute goldmine for us to go to an event like this at the stage that we're currently at, because quite literally anyone that GP or Dave spoke to can either use our platform, get value from our platform, or know someone in their network who desperately needs our platform. So that's why it's so fruitful. Without disclosing too much, I do believe that we've got upwards of well over 40 hot leads that are, I believe, pestering David and GP to get things rolling on various fronts. That might be integration, it might be tokenization, might be just general partnerships on a tech front, things like that. So it was all goals were met, I'll put it that way, and then some.
Outstanding. Well, 40 warm leads. It sounds like it was worth the price of admission for sure. And shout out to you guys.
Bit more than warm, I would say. These are like kick your door down kind of leads.
Yeah. That's awesome. And it's great that you guys are in position to handle that inflow, especially as we're seeing more green days like today, and the sentiment picking up. I'm sure that's probably just the tip of the iceberg too. So shout out to you guys, shout out to the Blubird team for being in position, but also getting down there in the streets and letting everybody know what it is we're doing. Obviously that's part of what we're trying to do with these these Birdhouse roundups and interacting with other communities. But you guys, down in the audience, in the community, you're playing a big part in this too. Get out there, share these wins, let everyone know what's coming. We just had a little bit of alpha leaked that we could be chatting Sonium in the Birdhouse in a couple weeks. We've got all these warm leads that are ready to get onto the platform themselves and go live. So that is awesome. I think we've definitely covered Token2049, and my FOMO last week was real, and now this didn't really help. It's kind of made it worse. So I'll be anticipating those IRL events stateside, and hopefully be able to get over there with something like that in the future. But let's we usually go about an hour, 90 minutes. We don't have guests tonight, so let's just keep rolling with it and do a little fireside chat. Just let people know kind of the state of the union. You talked about all those warm leads coming in and kicking the door down, but what can they expect for the long-term vision of Blubird as they get onboarded?
Yeah, definitely. So it depends on who they are, I suppose, and what the involvement of the partnership or use is of the platform. But there's a lot happening behind the closed doors on the RWA side. It's really I wouldn't say it's a pivot for us. We're always going to be doing it. We're fast tracking a lot of it due to these bigger relationships that we're fostering. But you're going to start hearing names, like big names, thrown around, like as big as Goldman Sachs and things like that, and other large financial institutions that are really looking to take advantage of a lot of the tokenization of their assets. And there's a few reasons why. I'll just dive into that really quickly as well. One of the biggest ones is the ability to tokenize assets that are potentially on their books that they're not really that liquid at the moment, because they're only their current I suppose buyer base, if that's even a thing, where their purchaser base is really limited to that country where they exist. because they're on someone's spreadsheet, on someone's ledger. That's just a Web2 ledger. And they can't really do anything with it because there's no financial markets designed to handle it. So these institutions are really waking up to the fact that, well, hold on, now we can tokenize these in a safe way, in a compliant way, that we're still following regulatory guidelines and all that in each jurisdiction that they're available in. However, now they're a global asset, and they've got, you know, global liquidity that comes with that. And I'm not talking about retail liquidity that is very flimsy and you know, as fickle as a leaf by the wind, but more so opens it up to more institutional buying power, which is what they're interested in. So that's kind of catapulted us headfirst into that side of realm, I suppose, which is hugely exciting. You know, it's still, even though we're doing quite large things, you got to zoom out and then still realize that we're still just playing with a drop in the ocean when it comes to this stuff as well. It might look like a lot of big numbers internally. And when I say big numbers, I mean trillions. It might look like big numbers, but globally, still not that big. Until you get up into the hundreds of trillions, you know, that's when it's quite large. But I don't think people realize just the scope of assets that are not even recognized at this point because they've got no way to trade. And that's what's really going to be a big push of what gets tokenized. Sorry to divert there. I just wanted to interject that. But then I guess, like, for the other side, for our Web3 projects that, you know, want to use our platform and things like that. So we've got a rather large product rollout that's happening end of this month. Well, I should say end of next week. And that is more to do with like the automated onboarding side of things. It's going to really help streamline fundraising efforts for projects. That also means that our investor portal is going to get a bit of an upgrade as well to handle the other side of that, which is the investor side. And that is a very large component to go live. It's a very big release. So lots of big upgrades and changes due to that. And yeah, so not sure if I fully answered your question there. I went off on a few tangents.
No,
there,
I think
Mike,
it was. I think it was great, and you know,
Yeah.
you know how we do in the Birdhouse. You know, we don't have to answer the
Yeah.
question because the discussion is more valuable than the answer sometimes. But there was one thing that you just touched on. Obviously, the platform itself is mostly B2B, and you've got, you know, these new leads and an existing network that all want in. But you just mentioned the investor portal. What, you know, we're a community space. What opportunities are there for, you know, the average person that wants to get access to these companies, and, you know, as they go live with their token, or, you know, whatever they're trying to do on chain to support or to be involved, or, you know, potentially even use the portal to invest?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess it's a multifaceted answer for that one, because there's a lot of things that can be done inside the investor portal, although a lot of those things are locked right now, and we're gradually rolling out those features. So as of today, what you would be able to do is quite easily manage your investments and the allocations that you're a part of with projects that utilize our software. So first and foremost, that's how that works. There's not, because our token's not live yet, there's not a lot of those gated areas that are unlocked at this point either. So, you know, staking is turned off. Our gem field, which is where you'd gain early access to pre-seed, seed, and private rounds, is turned off currently. Things like that are, you know, in the pipeline to be done. I believe Q4. but can't really do it right now. With the advent of the automated onboarding, that will allow those who deal with a lot of like allocation requests, which we're still kind of in a bearish market, so there's not a lot of that going on right now. But when it does start to pick up, you'll see a lot more projects utilizing some of that to streamline those fundraising efforts, and it keeps it really tidy and just under one roof. You don't have to keep typing out value adds and things like that as an investor. Same with KYC, you only do it once. So there's still, I guess, a lot of benefits. However, the biggest benefits are not yet live. We are quickly working towards those. But just on a side note, we done some quick and dirty math the other night, just while we were preparing a document, and we ran through our growth strategy. And that is the growth strategy for the investor portal itself specifically. And it's based upon the pipeline of that 700 projects that we have access to due to some of our partnerships. Now, these 700 projects, let's just say for argument's sake, they all used Blubird because they're all wanting help. Where those leads came from, they're all projects in need. So for argument's sake, we'll say that it's around 700 number. Every cap table that gets onboarded out of those 700 projects will have between 100 and 300 investors. Now, let's just say, and this is just going a bit off my experience here, but 2/3 of those projects would have roughly 300 plus, and 1/3 would have around 100 plus investors. So based on those figures, and then accounting for a 20 to 30% investor crossover between those projects, we expect to have around about 114,000 qualified, liquid, and capable investors utilizing our platform at that point and exposed to our ecosystem. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen overnight, but that is a pretty compelling set of figures when you consider that's not retail at all. That's actual angel investors, VCs, community VCs, things like that. KOLs, all the rest of it. So once that starts to happen and the user base starts to grow on the investor portal side of things, it's going to become only more and more appealing for projects to want to utilize our platform as time goes on, because when they list one of their seed, pre-seed, or private rounds up for allocation requests from the investor portal, they've essentially taken a shortcut to having access to, those sorts of qualified KYC investors. And it's kind of, in my opinion, it will become a snowball effect, because one feeds the other and which feeds the other. And it's just going to go, quite exponential. So based upon that anyway, I mean, it's all theoretical until it kicks off, obviously. But given the current feedback that we've had, which is very, very, very positive on the software, I would be very surprised if it didn't equate to something very similar to those figures. So, yeah, very, very exciting.
No, it really is, and thank you for breaking that down, because there are so many facets of what the platform does and who it can benefit from all perspectives in the crypto and Web3 space. So, I think it's great that we got this kind of this recap this week from Token2049, as well as a chance just to rediscuss where things are at, because it's been a few months since we've been doing this now, and it's always good to refresh and reset and let people know what we're into, no matter what media platform they're following along on. So shout out for that. And I love how you went into kind of the the longer term vision and the potential, but maybe I'll kick it to GP or David or Ian. We could get you in here too. but some of the long-term objectives, and like what's the excuse me, some of the short-term objectives, and what are you guys trying to do to build on that vision?
I'll let someone else go. I'll just jump in real quick though. But product development and rollout. That's really kind of the focus of the core team that I run is literally that is our kind of our lockstep right now, is pushing product for use.
All right. Well, we'll stay tuned. I know product is important, and sounds like there's a ton going on. David, from your side, we talked about these 40, your inboxes being overwhelmed. I got to imagine that's part of your short-term objectives. But anything besides just facilitating all these demands?
I guess my focus is still very much on product side as well, and the more so the long-term vision for the product. I would personally love to see it be positioned much like Salesforce are with their suite of tools. And I think that this is something that a lot of our competitors have not done yet in the space, to build out a product or a suite of tools where agencies and incubators and accelerators can scale their business using our tools. So on the lead side, I am having a lot of discussions with Web3 agencies, development studios, smart contract developers that are looking for an easy solution where they can train their team and they can leverage a technology like ourselves to bring these products to market a lot faster in a more scalable and secure way. So the long-term goal for me is I see the product being positioned like that, and a lot of the business development actually being these different agencies and different development studios all over the world, taking care of a lot of the onboarding and also taking care of a lot of the customer acquisition and the user acquisition. We're not there yet, and at this point, where I think that that's more a long-term thing that will happen probably early next year, maybe a bit longer. And at this point, the short-term goal is just building on our case studies and building on these pilots that so far have been successful. So Corey did mention before, we're working with a number of different projects that are using the platform already. And I think at this moment, we've just got to focus on really having positive experiences, positive case studies, and positive pilots that we can use to scale the platform. And all of that is on track currently. So short term, I think we're perfectly on track, and long term, I would love to see this become an industry solution for launching projects and also managing the launch process.
Well, I can't wait. Sign me up. Ian, you want to jump in here and offer a little bit of the marketing perspective as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think, everybody really mentioned the importance of product. And when you look at technology and innovation, I think a lot of it becomes hype many times because people hear things, but it's all about impact and outcomes. And, I know you guys know that I'm a quotes person. The engineer and inventor, Dean Kamen, said that every once in a while, a new technology, an old problem, and a big idea turn into an innovation. I think that summarizes Blubird.
Excellent. Well, and we knew that a mic drop quote was coming. You did not disappoint. That said, David, you kind of talked about the potential for understanding these use cases and being able to promote and then go back and scale the platform. But I'd love to maybe hear from Corey on 5 years out, 10 years out, where do you see a platform like Blubird fitting in the Web3 ecosystem or with blockchain?
That is a very hard question, purely because Web3 changes so quickly. So to answer that, I guess you've got to look at where do you assume Web3 is going to be in 5 to 10 years and beyond. And 5 years is pretty easy enough to predict, but 10 years plus, I don't think anyone realistically knows where Web3 will end up at that point. So up until then, we're going to make sure that we keep in front of the curve, and we, manage our product rollouts according to that. So, at the end of the day, if we end up being the Microsoft of Web3 in terms of not evil organization, but like sheer scope of tools across different aspects, then so be it. I'm welcome to that challenge. So, I don't want to be one of those narrow sort of, not narrow-minded, but narrow-visioned enterprises that will only focus on one thing, irregardless of if that one thing is not going to be a thing in a couple of years. So we're very cognizant of making sure that what we do output and build out as product does have a semblance of longevity to that. And that actually also goes on to the other side of some of our core software, which is more Web2 orientated, which is our equity suite, that completely decouples Blubird from Web3, from a bull market, bear market cycle, and allows us to pretty well be a thorn in the side for entities like Carter, Pulley, and other equity management software suites. So, we're not really just sort of pigeonholing ourselves into one narrow sector and area. It's more so a very well, what's the word for it? Oh, I did have a smart word for it, but I've lost it now. But it's a well thought out and well planned net of products that are aiming to capture a broad spectrum, broad scope of business, basically.
Well, that's an awesome vision, and I know that it was a bit of a broad question and a challenging question, but I think out of a lot of the people in Web3, you have this very broad experience as well as time to see it go through, and you talk about not knowing really where it's going to go, and and large corporations that we depend on today. We always go back to the Amazon example, right? They were a bookstore. There was no way they could have anticipated that people in the United States would be watching football on through their streaming service, or that half of the information and data that was sent around the world was through their AWS services. So we just wanted to remind everyone we're a highly speculative group of individuals that kind of demand hype and immediate returns, but the nature of startups, it can take 5 to 10 years to develop, and so just being able to be around founders and builders who understand that, and they don't just crumble to the demands of the timeline, is really important. So I think we've had a fantastic space. I love just getting to go with the guys on the team, hear about Blubird specifically. And so the one thing we always do here, we kind of toss it around. Any final thoughts on this space? Anything you just see in the timeline, something you want to cover, just leave the audience with. I'll give you guys about 60 seconds each. GP, why don't we start with you?
Oh, as far as what to leave them with, I mean, we've been so heavily focused on kind of what we're seeing out in at events and opportunities and projects. I think from a takeaway would be if you have the opportunity to attend events, whether they're local or whether they're international or national. It's a great place to actually really get a good grasp of what is going on in the industry. It gives you a different perspective than a Discord channel or what you're reading online, or actually like being able to have that humanized element or human connection point. I think that would be, what I would leave with is if the opportunity presents, absolutely take it.
I love that, and I promote that all the time too. I love my IRL events. It's probably one of the things that refills my cup, being in this space and being able to grind for as long as we do, going out there and interacting with others. David, I'll give you a chance. Final thoughts, takeaways from 2049, or anything else you want to leave us with?
I think the biggest thought for me was that although sometimes when we're online or we're looking through our X feed, it might seem like we're in a bit of a downturn and there's not a lot of people that are actively building in the space. But coming back from this event, I can clearly see that people are building more than ever, and they're preparing for this. And there's active teams that are pushing extremely hard all over the world to build and become a part of this space. So it was just a bit of a reality check for myself, just to get amongst people and just see how many active teams and just experienced builders are trying to put their stake in the space. So it was great to see.
Yeah, that's really good perspective too, and I think that's something that newcomers often struggle with when they're following hype projects or roadmaps or blueprints, white papers. Some of the more sophisticated people in the space who have been here for a little bit, or founders and builders like you, are always just getting the thing done before they tell the information, right? They don't have to lead with a hype. They're actually just, here's the product, go use it. We've been working on this, and it's much more refreshing in that sense, because you know that you can stand by it. So great for shouting that out too. Ian, hit us up. You got another quote for us? Any final thoughts?
Just that it's been good to have the team come together to share kind of a collaborative fireside chat and brainstorming together. And, one of the big things we keep hearing, whether it's Token2049 or throughout the industry, is RWAs. So for me, it's about rewarding Web3 and 2 actions and interactions. So hopefully we keep making that happen and keep making an impact. That's about it.
Awesome. I love it. The entire space. I'll just give you the last chance to come off mute. Tell us, anything that you've observed or want to give the community in these last moments.
Sorry, Matt, you were just breaking up for me for that last little, 5 seconds of what you just said.
No, just looking for your final thoughts and your takeaways. Anything you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, definitely. So not much product or project related, but more so just wanted to make sure, any of our listeners, their family, friends, our team, their family, friends who are in the southeast of the US, in that area where the hurricane path is looking to go, please stay safe. It's looking like it's a pretty decent one, and it's going to be a pretty hectic time for some folk. So please always be vigilant and stay safe.
Great shout. And Web3 is a family as well as great builders. So always keep your communities in your heart and your friends and family first and foremost. So with that, we will wrap. You know what? You guys dropped so much information. I just want to get back there for the F1 race. I'll just leave that as my final thought. Put it on the calendar, and I'll pack my bags. But do want to just give one quick announcement. We will be back next week in the Birdhouse for episode 13. We have another special guest locked in. We have Nick from the KBT standard. It's a new Ethereum standard where you actually can 2FA your asset, not your wallet. So it's pretty unique. I'm sure we'll have some great questions for him, as well as get some perspective on the entire Web3 space from his vantage point of working with the the Ethereum network and everything that they've built over time, and how certain projects could benefit from, or even founders and holders of having their assets protected. So keep your notifications on for the Blubird account. That'll be coming out with an announcement probably middle of next week. And just anybody keeping track, we will be starting that space a little bit earlier. Nick is in Europe. The guys are in Australia. I'm on the East Coast. So we're going to make it happen 6 p.m. East Coast. I think it'll be about 8 a.m. for the Australia crew, and it will be the middle of the night to Nick. So shout out, Nick, for staying up late for us. With that all said, this is the end of episode 12 of the Birdhouse. I appreciate you guys all coming through, showing support, putting up the likes, the comments. We couldn't do this without you guys. And, we love sharing this information. So until next week, Birdhouse flying out.